Have you ever noticed how education today seems completely stuck in this endless, massively expensive loop of reinvention? I mean, we spent all this money, but it rarely seems to actually move the needle on student success. Well, today, we're diving into an explainer based on a deeply compelling analysis from the reading sage called Beyond the Brand. We're going to unpack exactly why the way we teach kids keeps shifting and shed some much-needed light on a reality that impacts practically every community out there. So the source material poses this really fascinating core question. Think about it. A new science-based curriculum gets rolled out. Districts drop millions of dollars, and teachers sit through all those mandatory training sessions. But then, fast forward just 3 years, and boom, it happens all over again. Another rebrand, another expensive solution promising to fix what the last one supposedly couldn't. It really begs the question, if these new frameworks are so incredibly transformative and foolproof, why are districts completely replacing them every 3 years? The explainer points out a truth that, honestly, most classroom teachers have quietly understood for years. It's summed up perfectly right here. Most educational innovation is old wine in a new bottle. The author makes the case that these modern miracle fixes sold to school districts, they're really just slightly tweaked, repackaged versions of teaching methods that educators have fundamentally known about for generations. All right, so here's our roadmap for this explainer. 1, the curriculum industrial complex. 2, the fidelity trap. 3, Finland's approach to trust and equity. And 4, what actually works. Let's kick things off with part 1, the curriculum industrial complex, or basically, the marketplace of educational intellectual property. The source argues that modern education operates a lot less like a public service and way more like a corporate marketplace. And there's this brilliant disconnect happening. On one side, publishers are pushing these heavily trademarked, branded systems. We're talking highly scripted pacing guides and benchmark rubrics. But if you peel back the label and look at the underlying science, the author notes these are actually just derived from timeless, totally unbranded concepts. Think about hands-on learning from Maria Montessori, structured literacy from Orton Gillingham, inquiry-based learning from Reggio Emilia, or visual modeling from Singapore Math. The industry essentially just keeps copywriting the classics. And the publisher's pitch is incredibly enticing to school boards. They sell the whole shebang. Boxed curriculum programs, super slick online dashboards, lessons scripted down to the exact minute, and massive data trackers. Every single product claims it's guaranteed to accelerate achievement. But if that were actually true, why are teacher burnout and student disengagement still skyrocketing? That brings us to part 2, the fidelity trap. This is what happens when classroom reality completely breaks the script. The crucial thing to understand here is what goes down when these rigid, standardized theories inevitably collide with messy, unpredictable real-world classrooms. When a multi-million-dollar program fails to raise test scores, does the publisher take the heat? No way. Instead, the blame gets shifted entirely onto the teachers for a lack of fidelity. The consultants will literally say, well, the teachers just didn't implement our program correctly, or they didn't strictly follow the pacing guide. The author points out that this pushes a profoundly toxic message that highly educated professionals simply cannot be trusted to think for themselves. Let's bring this down to earth for a second. Imagine an actual 4th grade classroom. You've got a teacher standing in a room with 34 completely unique human beings. The source paints a very real picture where that single room has kids reading at a kindergarten level sitting right next to kids reading at a 6th grade level. You've got English language learners, students with dyslexia and ADHD, kids dealing with serious trauma, and gifted learners all together. Honestly, no scripted pacing guide designed in a corporate boardroom is ever going to be able to differentiate for that much human complexity simultaneously. Yet to enforce this so-called fidelity, teachers are increasingly evaluated through heavy compliance systems. The author points to frameworks like the Danielson model, arguing that they often just act as compliance trackers. So instead of fostering authentic human connection, reading instruction is reduced to disconnected skill drills and 10 pages of worksheets, all monitored by punitive evaluation rubrics. The result? Teachers end up spending an enormous amount of time proving they are teaching, instead of, actually teaching. And the analysis highlights a really painful irony here. As administrative oversight completely explodes, we're talking armies of compliance officers, curriculum specialists, and data teams, the actual reality inside the classroom is deteriorating. The teachers who desperately need the time and resources to support those 34 diverse kids, they are left dealing with larger class sizes, way less planning time, and an ever-expanding mountain of paperwork. The bureaucracy is quite literally expanding faster than the direct student support. All right, let's shift gears to part 3, Finland's trust and equity. Let's look at a macro-level solution. To see a true alternative to this brand-heavy curriculum complex, The source turns our attention to Finland. Now, the whole world is fascinated by Finland's educational success, but the author stresses a key point. They didn't achieve this by buying a miracle curriculum brand. They did it through trust. Their fundamental assumption is that teachers are highly trained professionals. Yes, they have national frameworks, but they pair that with massive local autonomy, dramatically less standardized testing, and almost zero administrative oversight. Get this, the author even shares an incredible anecdote about a superintendent of public schools in Helsinki whose office was literally his car. He just drove from school to school asking teachers what they needed. Boom, giant administrative overhead eliminated.
And the contrast in equity is staggering. In the US, the source points out that an affluent suburb might drop $30,000 to $40,000 per student, while an underfunded school might be scraping by on just $8,000. Finland approaches funding with a totally different mindset, strictly needs-based resource distribution. They fund schools based on what actual students need to succeed, not based on local property wealth or whoever has the flashiest marketing budget. To them, equity isn't making sure every child gets the exact same corporate worksheet. It's making sure every child gets the specific support they actually need to learn.
Finally, let's look at part 4. What actually works? Restoring the human heart of education.
So if we strip away the flashy brands and all that administrative bloat, what actually works inside the classroom? Well, to fix our fragmented reading instruction, the reading stage model argues we have to focus heavily on something called oracy. This is heavily emphasized by systems like the British Voice 21. Oracy is simply the foundational ability to communicate through discussion, reasoning, speaking, and listening. Because reading isn't just mechanically making sounds off a page. Reading is thinking, and thinking grows socially through dialogue, debate, and being exposed to rich vocabulary. The author suggests that after 26 years in the education field, the most effective model is actually remarkably simple, even if it's way less glamorous than publishers want to admit. Here are the simple truths. 1. Read with children directly. 2. Discuss ideas deeply. 3. Build vocabulary in context. And 4. Trust skilled teachers. It literally just means less time on disconnected worksheet drills and way more time engaging with meaningful text and actually talking with students.
Ultimately, the takeaway here is that education is not a fast food franchise model, and children are absolutely not standardized products moving down some sort of assembly line. Learning is just way too complex and human to be reduced to fidelity checklists. The most effective schools are the ones that prioritize human elements, things like collaboration, emotional safety, abundant reading, protected curiosity, and genuine relationships over the next flashy curriculum rollout.
It all really comes down to one powerful standard, and this quote hits the nail on the head. The real standard should not be fidelity to a brand. It should be fidelity to children. The author makes a hugely compelling case that we have to stop chasing these expensive silver bullets and start investing in the deeply human work of teaching. Because honestly, no software dashboard is ever going to replace a thoughtful teacher who truly knows their students. So I want to leave you with this final provocative thought to chew on as we wrap up this explainer. Look at the communities around you. What kind of system do we truly want for our kids? Are we going to keep chasing expensive, repackaged brands, or will we finally strip back the bureaucracy and trust our teachers as the professionals they are? It's a massive question for the future of learning.